Hey everyone, this is Samarth. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will handle user account for our Note app. After this video, we will be able to log in, log out and create new account in our app. So let's get started. Now first of all, we need to open Session Manager class, and here we also have to save email and name of the user with JWT token. So change the name of this function to update session and get name and email in parameters. And then we have to create two more keys, name key and email key. For that, let's add two more constants, name key and email key. And then let's update name and email in data store preferences. Now we need three more functions. First one is to get current username, second one is to get email of current user, and third one is to log out the session. In logout function, we have to clear the data store. Now let's create one sealed class in this utils package. Name it result. It will work as wrapper class for our network request results. It is a generic class and have two variables. One is data of type T and error message of type string. Both are nullable. Next, we have to create three more classes here, which will act as states of the results. Now, first class is success, and it will contain some data for sure. That's why it is not nullable. Then it may have error message and extend it from result class. Similarly, there will be error class having error message for sure, and it may have some data, then extend it from result. And there is one more state which is loading, because network operations take time, so that time it will be used to show progress bar. Now we have to make a repository. For that, in Ktor Note app package, make a new packaged repository. In this repository package, create a interface Note repo, and here we will declare all the functions. We are making interface because it is best practice to make interface and then implement that in class. Because if you want to create test cases in your app, then you have to make a kind of a fake repository, and it will be helpful at that time. Now let's create our first suspend function, that is create user, which will accept user in parameters and it will return a result of type string. Next function is login, and it will also accept user and return a result of type string. Then there is get user and logout function. Logout will not have any parameters and it will return a result of type string. Then this get user function also don't have any parameters and it returns a result of type user. Now in this utils package, create a new file, NetworkUtils. Here we will create a function which will check if the mobile is connected to internet or not. So the function is isNetwork connected, and it will return a boolean. Now create a variable connectivity manager and call context.getSystemService, and here we have to pass up argument which is context.connectivityService, and we have to get it as connectivity manager. Now we need active network, which we will get from connectivity manager.activeNetwork, and then we need network capabilities, which we will get from connectivity manager.getNetwork capabilities, and here we have to pass active network. And then we will return true if network capabilities is not equals to null and network capabilities has capability of network capability internet. Now in this repository package, create an implementation class of Note repo, and it will be extended from this Note repo interface. And then we have to implement all the four methods. First of all, we need to inject a constructor in this repository. In this constructor, we need some dependencies. First one is Note API, second is Note DAO, and third is Session Manager. Now let's come back to our create user function. Here we have to open the try catch block and we have to return a result of type string. First of all, we have to check if the network is connected or not. If the network is not connected, we have to return error message, that is no internet connection. And if the network is connected, then we have to do the network call, which is we have to create the account on the server, and then we have to check if the result is successful. Then we have to update the session in our session manager, and we have to pass the result message and name of the user and the email of the user, because when the result is successful, the message of this result variable contains the JWT token. So then we have to return the success message, which is user created successfully. Now if the result is not successful, then we have to return an error message, which is result.message, which will be an error message if the result is not successful. And then open a catch block, and here we have to return the error message, and if the message is null, then we have to return some problem occurred. And then let's come to our login function. This login function is similar to the create user function, so let's copy this function and paste here, and here we have to call the login function instead of create user function, and then we have to update the success message to logged in successfully. And after this, everything will be as it is. Now let's come to our get user function. Here we have to get name and email from data store, and if the name or email is equals to null, then we have to return an error message that user is not logged in, else we have to return a success message and the data will be a user. Now wrap it in try catch block, and in this catch block, first of all print the stack trace, and then we have to return an error message which will be the exception message, and if the exception message is null, then we have to return some problem occurred. Now let's come to our logout function, and here we have to copy this get user function and paste here, and then remove this name and email code, and here we have to call a function that is logout function of this session manager, and it will log out the user from the session manager and return a result message that is logged out successfully. So that's all for this node repository. Now let's come to our account package, and here we have to create our view model, which is UserView Model, and extend it from view model, and above that we have to write annotation which is help view model. Now we have to inject a constructor, import this inject, and here we need node repository. So to inject node repository, let's come to our app module, and here we have to provide node repository. So let's create a function which is provide node repo, and extend it from singleton and provides annotation. And here we have to return node repo interface, not the class which we have implemented. So for that we need node API, node DAO, and session manager. So let's get it in these parameters, and then give it to node repo implementation class, and then return this. Let's come to our user view model, and here we need a state to represent the register request. So the variable is register state, and it is equals to mutable shared flow of type result of type string. Instead of this shared flow, we can also use live data, but as shared flow is newest thing, so let's use it. And why we are not using state flow instead of this shared flow is because state flow will emit its state every time whenever anything happens. For example, even if we will rotate our device, then it will again emit the state, but shared flow will handle that rotation or any other events happening in mobile. So that's why we are using shared flow. Now let's create a public variable which is register state, and it is of type shared flow. It is equals to this upper register state. Now let's create a function which is create user, and it will accept name, email, password, and confirm password in parameters. And then we have to make a function to check if email is valid or not, and it will accept email in parameters and return a boolean. So to check whether the email is completely formatized, then we need a regex. You can copy this regular expression from my GitHub. I have also copied it from internet. Call the pattern.compile, and here we have to pass this regular expression, and then we have to return that our email is not empty, and this email matches to this regular expression pattern. And if both the conditions are true, then it will return true, and else it will return false. Similarly, we have to create a function to check if our password is valid or not. So for that we have to write a function is password valid, and we have to accept password in parameters and return a boolean. And then we have to return if the length of the password is greater than, let's create a constant which is minimum password length. Let's make it 4, and let's create one more constant which is maximum password length, and let's say it is 8. Now in this view model we have to say that if the password length is greater than or equals to this minimum password length, and the password length is less than or equals to maximum password length, then we have to return true, and else it will return false. Now let's back to this create user function, and here first of all we have to emit the state of loading, and also we need to open view model scope.launch, and because we want to call suspend functions here, so we need coroutine block. And then we have to check if the name is empty or email is empty or password is empty or confirm password is empty. Then we have to emit the state of error, and the error message is some fields are empty. And then we have to return from this launch block. And then we have to check if the email is valid, and if it is not valid, then we have to emit the state which is email is not valid. And then we have to check if password is valid, and if it is not, then we have to emit the error state which is password length should be between minimum password length and maximum password length. And then we have to return from this launch block. Now we have to create a new user which is equals to this user, and here we have to pass name, email and password. And then we have to call create user function of node repository, and we have to pass new user in that, and it will return a state which is success or error message. So let's directly call it in this emit block. So that's all for this create user function. Now we have to create a function to login the user, and for that we have to create a login state which is similar to this register state, and then copy this function from create user and then paste it in login function, and remove this confirm password parameter, and also remove this check that confirm password dot is empty, and then call the login function instead of this create user function. Now we have to create one more function which is get user function, and for that we have to create one more state which is current user state, which will be equals to the shared flow of type result of type user. And then let's come to our get user function, and here we have to open the view model scope dot launch, and then we have to emit the loading state, and after that we have to call the get user function from this node repo, and let's directly call it in the emit block. Now let's create one more function which is logout and launch the view model scope, and then we have to call the logout function from this node repo, and if the result is successful, then we have to call get current user function here. You will understand it later why we have did this. So that's all for this user view model. Now let's go to our create account fragment, and here we have to attach this business logic with the UI. So for that, in this onView created function, we have to write binding dot create account button, and then we have to set the click listener here, and here we need name from the username ID text, and then we need email and password and confirm password. Now we need user view model in this fragment. Write private var user view model, and it is of type user view model, and get it by activity view models. We are using activity view models because we want single instance of this view model in all the fragments on our single activity. And also we have to write annotation that is Android entry point in this fragment. Now in this click listener we have to call create user function of this user view model, and here we have to pass name, email, password and confirm password, and we have to also trim all of them because we can't trust user. Now we have to write a private function which is subscribe to register events, and open the lifecycle scope here, and then we have to call user view model dot register state, and then we have to collect the states here and name it as a result, and we have to check when the result is success, then we have to do something, and if it is error, then we have to do something, and if it is loading, then we have to do something else. Now we have to write two more functions. One is for show progress bar, and the other one is to hide the progress bar. So in this show progress bar function, write binding dot create user progress bar dot visible is equals to true, and in this hide progress bar we have to write binding dot create user progress bar dot visible is equals to false. So when the result is successful, then we have to hide the progress bar, and we have to show a toast that user is successfully created, and then we have to pop backstack find controller dot pop backstack. Similarly, in the case of error, we have to hide the progress bar and then show a toast, but we don't have to pop backstack. And then here we have to show the error message, which is result dot error message, and in case of loading we have to show the progress bar. Now we have to call the subscribe to register events function here in this onView created function. That's all for this create account fragment. Similarly, we have to do this for login fragment. So why not just copy and paste the things. Here we need the view model, so private val user view model is equals to is of type user view model and by activity view models. And here also we have to write the annotation that Android entry point, and here we have to write the login button. Here currently we don't have a name edit text, so let's create the name edit text. So just copy this edit text and paste here. Change the ID to name edit text, and then the input type will be text, and then the autofill hints will be name. And in this email edit text we have to write top to the bottom of name edit text. So let's come back to our login fragment, and here we have to update the name edit text and then remove the confirm password. Here we have to write login user and then remove confirm password, and then we have to subscribe to the login events, and here we need login state. And then in this show progress bar we have to show the login progress bar, and in this hide progress bar we have to hide the login progress bar. Then we have to call this subscribe to login events function in here. So let's call this function here. Now the last part of this video is this user info fragment, and here we first of all need the user view model. So private var user view model of type user view model, and it is equals to activity view models, and let's make it a Android entry point. And then in this onStart function we have to call user view model get current user. Now again we have to make three functions. The first one is private function user logged in. Now here we have to hide the progress bar, and we have to show the logout button, and also we have to hide the create account button and the login button. Let's write everything here. Binding dot progress bar dot is visible is equals to false, and then duplicate it, and then we have to write login button is visible equals to false, and then create account button is equals to false, and then we have to write logout button is visible, so let's make it true. And also when the user is logged in, then we want to show the user email, let's make it also visible. And then we have to make a function when the user is not logged in, so user not logged in, and here we have to make the login button visible, and create account button should also be visible, and the logout button should be not visible, and then user email should also not be visible. Now we have to subscribe to the current user, so let's make a private function subscribe to current user events, and here we have to call the life cycle scope dot launch, and in this we have to call user view model dot current user state dot collect, and it will return a result. When the result is success, then we want to do something. Then when the result is error, then we also want to do something. And then when the result is loading, then we want to do something. When the result is loading, then we want to show the progress bar, so progress bar is visible should be true, and when the result is error, then we want to call the function user not logged in, and then we have to set the text of user text dot text is equals to not logged in, and when the result is success, then we have to call user logged in, and then we have to write binding dot user text dot text is equals to result dot data dot name, which is a nullable, so we have to write let's say no name, which will not occur in any case, but we have to write something here. And also we have to write the email, which is binding dot email dot text is equals to result dot data dot email, and then we have to write no email, which will not occur in any case. And then we have to call the subscribe to user events function here. After this, we have to set a click listener on logout button. So let's say logout button dot set on click listener, and here we have to write UserView Model dot logout. After this, open your main activity, and here we have to write Android entry point annotation. Now let's run our app and let's see if it is working fine or is there any problem. Our build is successful. Now let's open this account fragment, and here you can see user is not logged in, and the create new account button and the login button is visible, and the logout button is not visible. Let's go to the create new account fragment, and here create account. Let's say password is not equals. So as you can see, it is giving us a toast. Match the password and then create the account. Progress bar is visible. I think it is behind the button, but you can set it accordingly. Let's wait for the result. So account is successfully created and our fragment is pop backstack, and then you can see our name and email is visible and the logout button is also visible. So let's log out, and here you can see state is updated, and we can log in. And then we have to log in here. So our login is successful. So that's all for this video. In this video we have did lot of stuff. We have implemented node repository, we have made the create account and login functionality working, and then we have maintained the session also. So in the next videos we will work on nodes, and so thank you for watching this video. Have a nice day.